Should we have roll call, please?
Coiner,
Here.
Greenlee,
Here.
Kiefhaber,
Here.
Meyer,
Here.
Peterson,
Here.
Powell,
Here.
Schertz, Spratt, here, Walker,
No, ma'am.
no,
Well, she-
Okay.
She just emailed it, or texted me and said she was in the waiting room.
Whitmire.
Here.
We have a quorum, Madam Chair.
That's wonderful. Our first agenda item is approval of our December 22nd meeting. And so you have the minutes in front of you. So if you would take a minute to look it over, and then I will do I hear a motion to approve the minutes of December?
To approve the minutes from the last meeting.
I second that.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the meeting minutes. Those in favor indicate aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, we'll accept those minutes. We have in our audience today, we have an audience, but we have some dedicated members in support of an item that will be on our agenda, and that is hearing their work as a committee for the ad hoc dog park. And so we're all anxious to hear about that. So welcome. And with that in mind, we have no business. So we are going to turn our new business over to our colleague, Jerry, and he will start off the report.
Thank you. First of all, what I'd like to do is I'd like to say thank you for asking me to be the chairman of this new venture that we had as far as our improving our dog parks in the city of Davenport. Not only that, but I'd like to introduce some people that a few weeks ago came in and expressed their concerns and their ideas of what they could do to make our dog parks much, much better. So I'd like for you to stand for a minute, if you would. We have Stephanie Ridmer out there, and we have Cal Johnson out there. Jim, you weren't on the committee, but anyway, I'm not sure what your last name is, but anyway, I know he's involved with that down there as well. And in our committee, our other committees was Farrah Powell and Anthony Whitmire. So thank you very, very much for all of you helping with us, and we spent 3 weeks getting that thing together, and along with Becca Niles and Billy Fisher. So what I'd like to do now is turn this over to figure out, she can let us know all of our gold standards that we put together. So I'm going to turn it over to Becca.
I was trying to push a different button. I'm not used to sitting here. I wanted to kind of echo Jerry's appreciation. I thought that anytime that we can have community members who are passionate and advocates for their parks and their spaces is always makes our job a little bit easier, because then we're knowing that we are serving in the way that is best for our community. So I want to echo those appreciations to both Cal and Stephanie here, as well as Kathy, who is not here tonight. I thought that it was a really fruitful committee, and everyone was 100% committed to coming out with this draft document that you guys have in front of you. So I'm going to talk real quickly about kind of our process and some of the things that we did, and then we'll actually get in a little bit to the report. So as Jerry said, we had, there were 3 PAB members. We had 3 members from the community, and then 2 that represented staff. In our first initial meeting, we had 5 total meetings. In our first initial meeting, 4 meetings. We talked about our goals and desired outcomes and the kind of the expectations and roles of everyone that was on the committee. And we really set out some general standards areas that we wanted to address. So we had amenities and activities, we had maintenance and operations, we had structures and safety. Were kind of the big four themes that developed as part of our conversation, that initial meeting. And then we used those as our areas of focus when delving into specific standards or guidelines. We also went through and defined the difference between what would be a community DOLA and what would be a neighborhood DOLA. And the information, the definitions of those did come from our NRPA park standards. So National Parks and Recreation Administration is our national association, not administration, association. And they kind of gave us guidelines for what a regional park, a community park, a neighborhood park, and a mini park is. And that's at the national level. So we mimic that in developing what a community DOLA would be and what a neighborhood DOLA would be. And that helped define amenities, structures, sizes, as we were moving forward and getting into the standards themselves. So one of the things that I thought was a really great idea was that we didn't meet at River's Edge every single time. We did a meeting at Centennial Dog Park, and then we did a meeting at Robin Creek Dog Park, the two DOLAs that we have here in Davenport. And that helped give us visualization. We were able to point things out, highlight things that were working, areas of growth and opportunities for change. And then we did a lot, and then we came back to River's Edge and hammered out kind of the overall list. So the document that you have in front of you is a draft document. The goal of bringing it to you tonight is to give you guys some time to sit with it, read through it, offer suggestions, comments, questions, and then we'll have a finalized version for you guys to take a look at the next meeting. Okay? So I do want to highlight what we as a committee put together was a bulleted list of items, and through conversations and notes that I was taking in these meetings, I took the bullets and the highlights and created more of a narrative, and that's what the document that you have in front of you. And then we wanted to kind of reorganize it. We had those four areas that I outlined, but we wanted to look at standards from that 30,000 foot level. So the committee itself had two goals. One, create standards or guidelines that staff could potentially use moving forward as we develop new DOLAs in Davenport. The second was to get these in writing, and it would help as a guide to bring up to the potential standards or address some of the issues that we have at Centennial DOLA, the Centennial DOLA and the Robin Creek DOLA. So it really is just meant as a guide for staff. And as we're planning projects or planning improvements or updates or replacements, we're going to have this document to help give us some guidance. It is broken out into 5 areas. We have the introduction, which was a little overview of the ad hoc committee, and then the goals of the committee, which that was something that we had set out in that first meeting. I included in here the definitions that we came up with. So this is the definition of what a community DOLA would be, a neighborhood DOLA, and then we even decided, we kind of broke out categories of dogs, because when we start getting into the layouts of a dog park, we talk about a small dog area and a large dog area. So we wanted to delineate what a small dog could be considered and what a large dog could be considered. So that's where we have that definition. So a small dog would be considered under 30 pounds. A large dog is over 30 pounds. But a small dog could also be a large dog who maybe is a little bit older, has mobility issues, or doesn't have that pep and needs a calmer area to be in, and that could allow them to be in the small dog area. So I just want to open up, do we have any questions about that the definitions? All right, so I'm going to highlight areas of this report. I don't want to get in too much into the details because I want to allow time for discussions back and forth. So the next section that the big section is our general standards. These are the basic standards that as the committee, we outlined for DOLAs in general. Not specific to a community DOLA, not specific to a neighborhood DOLA. So some of the areas that we looked at was structure, making sure how, you know, where it is in terms of other residents. That is a common theme that we hear from people who might be opponents to dog parks, is how loud it can be. So just addressing that, you know, it's going to be as loud as a typical park use would be. But we want to keep in mind our residents. Parking, making sure that we have somewhat readily accessible parking, but not necessarily creating specific parking lots for the dog parks. Drainage and ADA accessibility, those were some things that we added in after our committee from a more maintenance and operation standpoint. We want to make sure that we do have some issues that have been brought to our attention at Centennial. We might have a little bit of puddling, and so we want to make sure that as we're moving forward, we're creating areas of proper drainage so that we don't have that puddling that's happening. When we get into design and amenities, in general, our turf will be grass or natural turf only. We talked about doing perimeter plantings or buffers. This could help with noise dampening, it helps with windscreens, and it also helps with creating areas where dogs can't necessarily dig under the fences and get out of the fence lines. So it has a multi-pronged approach. We did minimum 6-foot height chain link fences with windbreaks. This was really brought up a lot and highlighted with any parks along the riverfront. We all have been on the riverfront. It gets real windy along there. Talking about having delineating between a small and a large dog area. The need for trash cans at appropriate intervals, as well as doggy bags, we'll call them. Water sources, that it's not just the dogs that need to drink water, but humans as well. Making sure that we have appropriate lighting at the entrances, making sure that we have appropriate seating, particularly that is dog friendly, i.e. paw friendly. So we want to make sure that we don't have paws that get stuck in between openings that might be in benches or tables. Making sure we have consistent, clear, and appropriate signage, not just right outside the park, but throughout the park as well, whether that is etiquette, rules, reminders, and we want to approach that from a fun standpoint. So we're going to try and come up with some fun slogans about making sure you're picking up poop. And I just said poop on official records. Love it. We wanted to address the walkways, making sure we had some paved areas to help with those with limited mobility. We got a little bit more specific about entrances and how those should be double gated with an S shape, and having space that there's 2 gates so that you can get inside the immediate entryway, unleash your dog, and then get into the park. We talked about communication. That was something that came up quite a bit, and that was a note that as the community outreach person I took to heart when our dog park users initially came in and talked to us. So we are working on creating not just having community boards or bulletin boards that we can do announcements, but also setting up a notification system so that if we do have to have a closure, like we did over the holidays, we have an appropriate phone tree that we can make sure people are getting notified in advance. We talked about operations and maintenance, our hours of operations, the rule signs and types of rules that we're going to be putting in place. Maintenance, making sure that our staff are able to easily get in and out as needed to keep things clean in there. Turf maintenance, our plan for inclement weather. The idea that volunteers, having people who are passionate about dog parks and passionate about Davenport dog parks, start volunteering their time in helping, whether it's helping with day-to-day small maintenance issues, cleanups, or helping with creating programs, special events, that kind of stuff. So having a little bit more engagement with a volunteer group. And then education. So what came up a lot was not all dog park users are educated in how dogs should be trained and offering opportunities in those dog park spaces to bring some education, whether it's training, resources, connecting them with other agencies in the community, but doing something a little bit more formal in the dog park areas, creating a more active space. So those are some of the general standards that just apply to Davenport dog parks. I'm gonna open up for a few questions or anything at this moment. Okay. So then we did have a delineation in some specifics between a community DOLA, which is going to be that it serves a larger area. We want it to be something that is a little bit more of a community attraction, not necessarily specific to the neighborhood that is adjacent to the DOLA. So a community DOLA is going to be, could potentially be a larger DOLA. We're looking at more between 8 and 10 acres potentially. And it will have more amenities, and that's where we would potentially host programs and special events. So you'll see that in addition to the general standards, these are additional standards on top of those. Does that make sense? Okay. So this is where we got into a little bit more specifics about what a small dog area, acreage for a small dog area, large dog area. And then we also looked at capacity. And that became something that was pretty important. 10 to 15 dogs per acre in a dog park is kind of the sweet spot in terms of comfortability. Typically anything more than about 15 dogs, that was the feedback that was given to us, starts feeling a little crowded if you're having more than 15 dogs per acre of a dog park. Pardon me. In terms of design and amenities, we got a little bit more specific into bench seating and having enough bench seating for, at any given time, about 20 people to be able to sit. Trash cans and bag holders, we talked about doing 8 weigh stations throughout the unenclosed area, depending on the size of the enclosed area. Water sources, this is going to be in addition to water fountains. There was talk about on a really hot day possibly having a mobile mister out at the community DOLAs to help take down the temperature a little bit and offer a little bit of cooler air. In terms of shade, we looked at a couple different types of shade and determined that at a community DOLA, a hardtop shelter or shade structure is best there. In addition to trees, shade sails, so shade takes a couple different forms. We talked about having agility course and undulations and pipes at the community level. And then, like I mentioned earlier, having programs and events, whether those are training classes, working with doing pet adoption days, doing spay and neuter drives, spring fest, fall fest, shot clinics, that kind of stuff. And then the only other difference in terms of lighting is talking about at the community DOLAs, having lighting that stays in the fall and the winter, stays on a little bit longer just to make sure that people can safely can get out of the DOLA and into their cars as night approaches. Any questions about this? Chris, I saw you look like you were questioning the mobile misters, or did I clarify that? Okay. And then the last section is the neighborhood DOLA standards, and similar to the community, we just delineated what is size and capacity for that, and water sources, and the types of site furniture, how many we want to make sure that we have seating enough for, the trash cans and bag holders, the types of shade. The feedback that we got in our committee was that shade sails and the softer shade type structures work good for the neighborhood. It's not necessary to have a hard top shade structure. And then having some kind of undulation and pipe feature in the large dog area of a neighborhood DOLA gives dogs something, a different activity to interact with. And then in terms of operations, and maintenance, all the neighborhood DOLAs would follow the general standards that were already outlined.
That's a lot of information. Take a minute. We've got a chance to ask questions. That was awesome.
Thank you. And like I said, I would like for you guys to be able to kind of sit with this for a little bit, take a look through it, write down some notes and feedback, and then I will reach out to you, or Jessica will, to get your feedback on it so that we can finalize and answer any other questions as well.
Okay. I'm interested among advisory board members, how many do frequent a dog park? Okay, so we have a couple of members who have probably more expertise than some of the rest of us.
That's why they were on the committee.
Yeah, that's right, that's right.
Thank you.
Okay, Jerry?
I want to say thanks to our whole committee and the time spent and the dedication that we had at every one of those meetings, because everyone had something to say in Goodman towards the direction of which direction we want to go with the dog parks. So thanks to Becca and Billy Fisher. He's not here tonight, but anyway, we appreciate what he does too as well. And it's great to have it all in front of us so we can all kind of look at it and say, gosh, we are doing a better job than what we were doing before, and that's the reason why we're here. And thanks to Stephanie and thanks to Cal and Kathy, and she's not here, but thank you very, very much. And hopefully we'll continue to keep doing better and better each summer, that we get things done a little bit sooner. Sometimes it takes a little longer than normal, but we'll get where we're going to go. So with your help and anytime you need to reach out to us, you've got my number, of course, obviously. And so you're more than welcome to give me a call or whatever you can, or Becca, I think, is get the same thing. So anyway, thank you very much. We appreciate it. And again, thanks for letting me be chairman of the committee. I appreciate that. So thanks. I won't talk anymore. Bye.
Thank you. Are we ready to move on to our staff reports? I say yes. So, Chad, you have a verbal report?
Yeah, well, I was going to just offer up my appreciation too for the committee, for the time, PAB members, the members of the public, and our staff. Anytime we can, again, engage with the community to better our parks and our green spaces, that's what we're all about. So I guess one last opportunity for any of you, if you want to say anything, or we can move on, or, yeah.
The only thing I gotta say, just a quick 30 seconds, is we've already, since we started this, seen an improvement in the dog parks coming from the city. So we're heading in the right direction.
That's great.
Great. Well, we appreciate you guys, as always, so thank you. Moving on to my report, just a couple things of note. This time of year is budget review for all city departments. This past Tuesday, the council had their operating budget work session. But this Saturday is the CIP, Capital Improvement Program work session. It is open to the public. Public can attend. It starts at 8:30 a.m. here in council chamber. So every year I always like to remind you guys of that in case you're interested in attending that meeting. Another thing of note, this year, our department and the city will be hosting the annual Iowa Parks and Recreation Association Conference, and it will be held March 27th through the 30th at the River Center. In years past, I think there may be some opportunity for you guys to potentially attend if you're interested. I need to verify that with the executive director of the association just to confirm. So I will send out more details later on, or report back next month once I know what opportunities may be available for our advisory board members to participate or attend some of the conference stuff. So about every 3 to 4 years, Davenport hosts this conference. It sort of rotates around the state. So we're up this year, and our staff has been busy helping plan it. It's the Iowa Parks and Recreation. If you're not familiar, it's basically the professional association for Parks and Rec professionals in the state of Iowa. So the majority of our staff, our rec team, and our professional staff are members of this association. So there's work sessions, education sessions. There's also an exhibit hall where we have vendors that come in and show new and trending things in parks and recreation. So on a much smaller scale than the NRPA conference that we attended in Phoenix a couple months back, but always a good time. And then Becca kindly reminded me that, yes, many of our staff will be actually presenting sessions. So there may be an opportunity to see our staff show their expertise and in action if you're so inclined to attend. The last thing, next month, I will bring, along with the old business of the ad hoc recommendation that'll be on the agenda, I'll be giving pretty significant project update. We are getting to the point where a lot of these things are getting ready for review and bid, and you're gonna see a lot of work. But I wanna give the opportunity to present some conceptuals and renderings of various projects, our ARPA projects, and some of our other CIP stuff that I've reported out at various points through the year. So I will have a pretty in-depth presentation next month for that. So, and then lastly, thank you all for your park advisory or your park development fund submittals. We've tabulated those, and following the CIP meeting with council this Saturday, those rankings and the survey will be submitted to council for their rankings. And then we'll bring back the final slate for your approval, hopefully sometime either next month or early March. So any questions for me? Great.
We're quiet. Thank you, Chad. So send us information. Curiosity is there on sessions that would be available, that would be of interest, so keep it coming. That's good. We were given staff reports, and I'll give you just a minute to kind of collect if this is the first time you've seen them. So if you would take a minute to look at that. Are there questions or comments from others? I write notes as usual, but I want to hear from you as well. So we are very quiet here. I was pleased to see the bold completed in the listing of things that have happened, and I said great progress as a comment because it is monumental getting everything in, getting all the materials that are needed for projects, and to have it happen, and weather being on our side this season, so I say kudos to that. One of the things, I just had a question as I read about what is an E-plan review. That's the first time I've heard the word E-plan, and I'd like to know where that comes from and what the membership or who does that. Could you share a little of that? Because it's mentioned several times in our
So
notes.
E-plan is basically the system that Public Works uses to review any project plan specifications. So anytime we have a project that has specs or plans, it needs to be submitted for basically their review. So all the engineers at Public Works basically take a look at it and make sure we're meeting all code requirements and anything like that. So if we say it's at that point in the process, basically once it goes through the E-plan process, then it moves on to council for, depending on the dollar amount threshold, any project over 100,000 will go to council for approval for plan specs, and then it can go to bid.
Connected with that is the words "coming soon." And so there's lots in process, and there were two that I'm particularly interested in as an advisory board member. Will we have an opportunity before it all goes in to get a sense of what is the proposal for the Credit Island, especially the natural area, and Wayland Park? I know Mike's part of it, and I, earlier in time, evaluated that park and made suggestions. So I'm just curious where all those are in regard to, I'm wondering, do we get to see it at all, or before it goes to E-Plan? Question mark, big,
Yeah, so that's what I'll be presenting next month.
good. Well, I thought that was a connection, but I went, whoa, yes, yes, yes. So, I felt that the reason I asked that was it is a benefit as an advisory board member who is representing their ward, especially to get some sense of what it's looking like so we can answer some questions. So I see it as a benefit to each one of us as we, attend a ward meeting or whatever for communication. So that's why it came up. So I think you cleared up that beautifully. Thanks. Did that trigger anything for you all? Now we know an E-Plan, right? The thing that was, if you noted in the second one, under recreation, the Olympics was last week or last month for Special Olympics, and ice skating was one of those. And if you happen to have kept last night the coverage of one of the ice skaters, Jason is quite an interesting gentleman, and it was fun to hear his enthusiasm on what he's doing. So I don't know if any of the rest of you saw it or you have it, the news taped. Go back and take a look at that. And my last comment for myself was if you can, take a youth to the skating event on the 21st, where the figure skating club is providing mini lessons. So if you have a youth in your life that has interest in ice skating, here's an opportunity to get them down there to do that experience. So that's my ice skating love in its way. So thank you very much for that. But having the Learn to Skate, the third highest enrollment, that's awesome, and we want to keep that going. So keep that in mind. Anything else? Jerry, yes.
I can't go a meeting without saying that we have everybody working out in the golf courses and trimming trees and taking out ash trees. How are we doing with that, Troy?
That continues every winter for a while before we're completely caught up with them. The forestry has a schedule that they come on their availability, and we work with them to capture all the little stuff. We were making good strides while it was cold, but as you know, it got kind of warm, and we're tracking up the course, so we pulled off for a while. When it gets cold again, we'll continue on them, and
Is that because of the ground situation?
yeah, the
being
ground soft, yes. And then the oak limbs are only to be trimmed in January and February. So that's when we have to get after them when we get the next cold spell.
I noticed there's a few evergreen trees out at Emi's that's completely been dead for quite a while. I just wonder when we're going to take those out.
Yeah, the priority, there's some long-term standing dead ones that are taking priority, but they'll get to them all eventually.
Yeah, now is the forestry group, is that the same one that does all the parks too? That we don't have somebody separately doing that, so it's all one little group that's hopefully we can get the whole city done?
So forestry is a division of Public Works.
Yeah.
Not our department, so, and it's a relatively small division.
Yeah.
And
Do we have anybody in the Parks Department at the golf courses doing any of that at all, a little bit?
we supplement it as we can.
As you can.
Smaller stuff, but we don't have the equipment
Yeah.
and we run into, how do I say this?
You don't have to say it, because I already know.
Yeah, well, feelings, I guess, when we do work that another division or department is responsible
Yeah.
for. That's
I mean, you guys
the
have
way
got
to
enough
sort of
to
say
do.
it, yeah.
And I guess my situation more than anything else is the fact is the city of Davenport should have more crews than just one for forestry. And I've told that to Rick Dunn, and I've told that to Mattson, and it just doesn't seem to be going anywhere for some reason. I don't know why, but maybe it's just because it's me, I guess. But it definitely, it definitely needs to be looked at some more, and more people need to be added to that. So anyway, Troy, thanks. I appreciate it. The golf courses are looking good, and you do a good job out there, and I just like to see more and more and build a new clubhouse.
Thank you. Thank you.
As always, I would like to know what DCSD is, an acronym that was in our notes on communication challenges. So is that Davenport something?
Davenport
But-
Community School
School.
District.
Okay. Didn't even think about that one. Thank you, that's clear. And does anybody would share our top 3 challenges in hiring these days? We've heard a lot about not enough people. What challenges are you really focusing on?
So the larger issue is the labor market, because we are primarily a part-time or a seasonal operation. We do not have the full-time positions we once had, particularly in ops and golf, so we rely heavily on part-time and seasonal. And we are working, part of the problem has been probably our wages, our rate of pay has been what we would consider non-competitive or relatively low. So we have a pay band structure that sort of sets the different pay rates for various positions. So actually, I'm meeting with the finance director next week to discuss sliding that to make it more competitive with, and I think you see that a lot of places in the labor market, in particular with part-time positions, trying to find those people post-COVID to want to work. So that's really a challenge. I think last year we did some recruitment initiatives, tried some gift card giveaways, some non-monetary type things to incentivize work, and it was moderately successful, but I think the real issue lies in our wages and the labor market being more competitive, particularly with the Illinois side their minimum wage is escalating in the next couple of years to $15 an hour. So, I mean, for example, our lowest wage in our pay band is currently $8 an hour. So that's hard to get applicants interested in those jobs.
Thank you very much. I want to say that having a detailed staff report that we can read and digest and fire questions at is most appreciated. And I know that this is a time commitment for you all, but thank you so much. Any other comments, or we'll move on? Yeah, Chris?
I did have a question about rentals, because I was curious about how your rentals are in winter, and, if you see a fluctuation thereof, and if our themed parks have anything to do with that, such as themed rentals or anything, if we're doing anything about that.
So in the winter months, obviously, our shelter rentals and gazebo rentals, that goes down pretty, I think we may get 1 or 2 because they're doing a smaller school event or something, and they just want to make sure they have it. Most of our rentals that come in during the wintertime are planning in for the spring and summer. Our indoor rentals, so our lodge spaces, Roosevelt Community Center Gym, the Duck Creek Lodge, Credit Island Lodge, those stay pretty steady year-round. They dip a little bit in the wintertime, I think because people aren't necessarily doing things, but we hit a lot of the holidays. We'll have, and Thanksgiving is a popular time to rent the lodges. And then at the river's edge, a lot of our indoor turf time, that gets booked up pretty quickly, especially on days where the weather is not cooperative with any kind of outdoor sport. We get a lot of phone calls day of asking if there's any availability, but for the most part, our indoor leagues and outside rentals will take up our turf time.
I have a question.
Yes.
So, I know I heard about it all last year, but it's actually come across the news today that the ground's been broke on Iron T. Have we looked at how to stay ahead of that or talk to other locations where Iron T is, or Top Golf is there to see how their golf courses maneuvered to manage maintaining? So I don't know if you guys seen the Iron T is the big indoor, it's like the big thing. A lot of, I think it's younger crowd, but I'm just curious.
Good question.
We are looking forward to, like, the interest in golf practice tends to funnel down to golf play. So anywhere there's a range or a practice area that goes up, it's gonna increase the golf usage all around in the whole region.
Oh, okay.
As far as our practice facilities, we try to tailor the best to the player who comes to the golf course to play, and technologies are out there for upgrades. You know, as we look to upgrade clubhouses or upgrade driving ranges or stuff like that to some type of technology like you see in those entertainment venues.
And I would add, Top Golf, for lack of a better term, or really entertainment golf. It's entertainment disguised as golf. Is a different sort of market, and like Troy said, it tends to help promote the sport in general. But where we try to combat or capture a part of that market is in things like the Cosmic Golf, right? So that's a version that we can bring to the courses that's similar, that's more of an entertainment rather than a lesson base or a round of traditional golf, so to speak. So there's been thoughts and ideas about how to enhance ranges, offer different types of things to try to make that element. And as a matter of fact, Matt Hazley, our pro at Duck Creek, has a really good idea about how to potentially modify the clubhouse and make it more of a entertainment type with the Cosmic. Again, that comes down to resources and funding to make that a reality, but it's something that, the pros and Troy review consistently, but yeah.
So I know that a lot of the bowling alleys, when TBK went up, they took a massive hit. Some dropped quite a bit, where the Riverbend Bowling, which used to be Miller Time, they've, hung in there and maintained. So I'm wondering, with it being in that location, it's a lot of families, it's a lot of mommy and me, daddy and me days. I wonder if that's something that potentially could be incorporated in a traditional golf game versus, it just seems like it's really, the entertainment golf is targeting, the family feel pretty heavy, so.
Correct, yeah.
But, okay, thank you.
Great. Are we ready to move on to our final staff report? Is our representative from the Riverfront Improvement Commission is Chris Meyer.
Well, don't get too excited because we haven't had a Riverfront Improvement Commission meeting since our last meeting. So I have no report to make.
Well, that's that. We have had an opportunity to see lots of work being done and to digest that, and we've had some good questioning, and now we have the DOLA information to deal with and to work with. So is there advisory time concepts or things that we should look forward to or develop? Comments on what we might be doing? No. I don't think the weather has been, I'm looking at last month's, for the temp rink at Vanderveer, nothing's there, so will that, I think we're going to have an interesting February myself, but who knows, right?
If weather allows, yeah. I mean, it hasn't been cold enough.
Okay.
Either has the West End rink
Yeah.
hasn't been successful yet either.
No. Well, I see geese heading north like crazy. They go over a flight plan over my house, and I'm going, they must know something that I don't know, or many of us don't know, but I've seen lots of migration patterns going, so look up and maybe they'll tell us more. We have had a meeting with lots of information, and we have a challenge or an assignment to get ready to comment to our committee in regard to thoughts after we have a chance to read that. And so at this time, I will entertain a motion to adjourn if we're comfortable with that.
So moved.
Is there a second? Okay, it's been moved and seconded to adjourn our January meeting. All those saying yes? Oh, well, they want to do that too. Indicate yes for favor of,
Yes.
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 no? I think we're all ready to go. I see to go on there, go to, yeah. So have a good rest of the week and enjoy our snowless days, I guess. At least it's raining.
Snowy early.
Yeah.
I'd like to let everybody know there is a meeting following our meeting, so we will have to take all sidebar discussions out into the main area, please.
Next Wednesday.